Hi everyone, Ben with PARCO Studio here in San Francisco. We're back again this week to dive a little bit deeper into our Marin County home project. Last week we were looking at the site scale, 1/16 of an inch equals a foot. So we were zoomed out pretty far. The building was only about this big on a piece of paper. And this week we're zooming in. So we're gonna blow everything up by 2 times. So we'll be working at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. And we'll start to be able to see where the rooms are, how they're oriented, and really how these indoor-outdoor relationships work. Ultimately, that's a big piece of really everything that we do. We think of the site and the building really as integral and a kind of a holistic approach toward design so that the inside and outside experience are really seamless. And so let's dive in and take a look at what's going on inside the home now, and we'll be able to understand why is the home oriented the way it's oriented, why is it the shape it is. So let's take a closer look. So one of the things I've done is to think of the house as being a number of equal-sized bays. And this is something that you see, I would say, more often in commercial or even sort of civic architecture than you do in residential architecture. And I'm going to adjust this a little bit because we're kind of what we call off module. Something about when I originally did this drawing, I increased the size of that space for some reason. You can see that what we have here is a bunch of equal sized spaces. And then this one here is a little bit smaller. That's the stair bathroom core. So I've kind of shrunk the building by a little bit by doing this. And again, I think we will end up with the roof, this A-frame roof coming all the way down almost to the ground in these two sections, but we'll end up with a dormer of sorts over the kitchen and bathroom. If I go back to this core idea, this idea is that we kind of create a pretty solid element almost in the middle of the house. This helps us structurally, especially here in California where we have seismic earthquake issues. And then again, we can even kind of use the stair, depending on how we build it, almost as a kind of shear wall or bracing element. And so you can start to see how the stair and the bathroom sort of work together. The idea with the bathroom here is that it's really a house for 2 people with a guest room. We don't really want to build a master bath and a guest bath, and so what we've done here is have a small Jack and Jill half bath. The idea is that we can have some pocket doors and that guests would be coming in and using that bathroom from this side. But again, if this is our dressing area and entry into the master bath, that we can actually enter that toilet room from this side as well, from the master bath side, and then it really becomes kind of a private toilet room within the master bath. So we sort of get double duty out of this space. And then a couple vanities in the master bath. And so this becomes this kind of solid element inside of this greater rectangle, which again is pretty glassy on the west side. Now, for privacy reasons, we might want to create a solid wall at the end here as well. If this is going to be our bedroom, we've kind of discussed this and we think we're going to turn the bed around the other way. And then we have to, there's a real question mark here, frankly, with this master closet dressing room area that still needs to get worked out. But the idea is that this bedroom might have a lot of glass on the end that looks out toward this kind of forested wooded area. Maybe there's glass above this wall in what we call a clear story, which is sort of high windows, but solid wall below so that you've got privacy. You could have a built-in dresser or furniture here along this wall. But the idea is that you're entering that bedroom either here or here, depending on how we want to integrate this dressing room master closet area. And then on the other side, we have the kitchen, which is really an L shape. Again, we're trying to bring light into that space as well. Looking at, potentially a sink and a range, refrigerator here. But it's really a dine-in kitchen. We might do a circular table. We've discussed maybe even a rectangular table that could kind of be moved around and used almost as a workspace inside of the kitchen. Maybe there's even a bar along this drop here. Again, this is where we want to create a level change at a minimum, I think, in this location. And again, we might have a level change here too. So we might have sort of 1, 2, 3 levels within the house. Once we get down into the living room, the idea is that we've got a big comfy sectional sofa, coffee table, maybe some nice lounge chair with ottoman, and that's it. So when you're in the kitchen, you'd be looking out over the top of this kind of sunken living room space toward this view. And again, this gets back to why the building is oriented the way it is. We want to capture all this west light along this whole facade in order to brighten up what's a somewhat dark site. And then when we've got these dramatic moments to the forest and out to the valley, we want to take advantage of the cross-section of the home. And so next I'm going to take a little look at what that cross-section looks like, and you'll start to see what we're trying to do here. So what we have here, I've rotated our site plan 90 degrees, and that's so that we can cut a cross-section through the house and see how it relates to the topography. I'm going to start with this garage, again, which we're thinking of as kind of a subterranean element. We've got at least 10 feet, I would say, to get from the entry of this garage down to where the driveway will be coming through. So that's something like, I'm going to call it in there somewhere. As I said, we'd like this deck to hover out over this to some extent to kind of conceal what's going on underneath. The house itself, the main level of the house will be up here somewhere. But again, we're thinking about maybe an 18-inch drop with some steps down to the living room. And again, this italic A idea, this sort of bias A-frame that is grabbing light from the west and really screening on the east side this neighbor who is up above us. They're over here and up a ways, and I think we are best to just sort of screen them out. This other neighbor is down over here and lower, and we can screen them out with some landscaping. So the idea is that we've got this big glass wall that's going to pull a lot of light into this fairly shady area. Now, it may turn out that this height is too high here for our neighbors and where their windows are. So this shape may end up, we may end up adjusting this. It may be sort of a almost a salt box if you're accustomed to that typology, which is you see on the East Coast a lot. Kind of a modern salt box. Again, sort of a dormer element to give daylight to the kitchen and bathroom on the ground floor. Some structure coming through the house here. Some kind of cross beams. And then the idea is that the second floor will just be kind of a loft space. We're thinking of a platform, almost like a big catwalk, a built-in long linear desk that runs along the length of the building, and some built-in bookshelves. And this becomes this sort of multi-station kind of work surface where we can hang out up there and get our work done from home pretty easily. With, again, lots of light and beautiful views, and sort of in the home but separated up on the second level. So there's our garage. This deck conceals that. It might come out a little further. That stair element in here somewhere in the background. And downstairs probably some kind of passageway that gets us from the main garage parking around, to the storage room and utility spaces, and then up to the stair. And then, of course, windows in this face. I think we probably don't want the whole thing to be glass, but we might end up with some zones of glass where it makes sense. The kick area underneath the desk doesn't need glass. Maybe above the work surface up high, maybe that's a cork tack board or something, but maybe there's a nice slot window right at desk height. And same goes for this living room space. Probably don't want glass all the way, but to some level. So you can start to see how we have a lot of, pretty solid on the east side. West side will have zones where light's coming in. And filling that space with light. And then on the end, we've got this kind of dramatic shape where if we were to flip this around and say, now I'm looking out the end of the home toward the valley, right? We're going to end up having these just gorgeous hillside views out there. And so this would be an all glass or relatively all glass facade. We'd probably drag these lines around the corner, these kind of horizontal lines that divide up the glass, and find some increment that works. But pretty quickly you can see how this is going to be pretty dramatic space out the end. And that's really the idea with this shape, is that we want to capture all this light from the west, because again, it's a fairly treed, wooded area, but we want to also really make a dramatic impact with these views to the north. And then to the south, we're going to have dramatic views too into this Douglas fir forest. So it'll be a little bit different, or a lot different from this, but also pretty compelling. So if we kind of think of this as our big glass wall here, you can start to get the idea of kind of the big idea with this diagram or with this shape is to really kind of build up the drama of that view, deal with this pretty extreme topography we have. Protect from this house basically up here, a neighbor's house that's kind of looking down on us. So this shape helps screen that. And then, you know, down here we have another neighbor. We can screen with some landscaping there as well. And then once we're up here, we're really not going to see anybody, right? We will have we're going to have this space created with these huge Douglas fir trees, one of them and two of them. The space created between these neighbors where we don't really have to see them or know they're even there. This dramatic view to the north. And you know, we have a lot of work to do here. We're going to come down that driveway, circle around, go back down the hill to the road. How do we get as a pedestrian from here up to here and into the house in a pleasant way? That'll be a little bit of a challenge for sure, but it's also an opportunity to do some, I think, interesting hardscape and landscape elements. So that's the upshot, and I think next week we'll probably get more refined with these drawings and get into some modeling and see what this thing starts to look like in 3D.